Hi, and welcome at the second part of this quick tip session from AudioTutsPlus.com. My name is Yuko Trump, and in this second quick tip, I'll be showing you how to import MIDI data from your sequencer into Sibelius and then editing it and cleaning it up and make it suitable for a live performance. Now, as you can see, my sequencer is Cubase 5. I'm using Cubase 5 to make my music, to compose my music. Now, the advantage of first composing your music in a sequencer and then notating it in Sibelius is that you can now actually hear what you play without having to notate it. So that is just something that I play live on the keyboard right now. So I can't do this in Sibelius because a lot of these sound sets are just not available in Sibelius. So now here in Cubase I can actually preview the sound live and then export that MIDI data and make it suitable for live performances. Now, as you can see, I've got two patches loaded. The first one are just the sustained strings, and the second one are the pizzicato violas. Okay, so now what we want to do is I'm just going to record a random string part right here, and then I'm going to show you how you can export it and import it into Sibelius, because you have to got a lot of things in mind. Now, first of all, what we are going to do is quite a cool thing. We're going to change the time signature, which isn't really cool on itself, but we'll get into that later. So I'm going to make it 6/8, and let's make it a 90 BPM. So let's just record a line. Okay, pretty cool. Now, what we can do is now change the time signature. Let's say 3/4. And as you can see now, 1, 2, 3, and now. Okay, so you can see that it automatically changes within Cubase. So let's just record another part. Okay, quite dramatic, but you get the point. Now, as we have recorded these strings parts, there's pretty much a lot of things that we have to do. So first of all, let's just double click and get into the MIDI editor. Now, probably the most important thing before we're gonna export it that we have to do is quantizing it. So as you can see, these lines represent the beats. So every single one of this line represents a beat of a bar. Now, as you can see, the notes are not aligned to it due to the latency of my MIDI keyboard. So what I can simply do is drag them like this, a little bit behind, and now they match. However, you can see that right here, this one doesn't match perfectly. So instead of doing everything manually, what we can do is select everything, then go to MIDI Quantize Setup, and choose between different grids. So you can see as we make the grid very big, the lines get smaller, which will allow you to quantize very fast notes. And as we set it to this, we can quantize the big notes even more precise. So what we can do is apply quantize, and now they are perfectly aligned to the beat. Now, what happens if they are not quantized? If one of these notes, for example, is just a little bit before the beat, then Sibelius will read that as if it was in this measure instead of this one. So then you will get pretty weird results, and obviously not what you want. So let's just quantize this part also. That is a little bit too far. And now let's see how this works. Yeah, this works out pretty well. Now, the other thing that we need to be aware of is that as we want this to be a live performance, then obviously we can't just export it like that, because then all of the players, the violin players, the cello players, the bass players, the viola players, they will only see strings. So they don't basically know what to play. Now what we can do is we can divide the different stems of the track. So for this you also need a little bit of knowledge of composition. And therefore there's a lot of resources online, also on Audio Test Plus, but you can also buy books like The Study of Orchestration by Samuel Adler, which is a very good book. I learned a lot from it. So obviously these lower notes are going to be played by the basses. These notes are going to be played by the cellos, then first violins and second violins. Or actually the other way around, this is going to be the first violins. So here's a pretty easy thing what we can do. What we can do is simply add a MIDI track, and we can add 4. So let's just zoom out a little bit. Now another thing is that when you export it, the instruments in Sibelius will be named this name, the name that you have actually given the instrument in Cubase. So obviously there's no instrument which has the name pizzicato viola. So therefore what we need to do is name the instruments as they should be named, rather than naming the expression or the technique, in this case the pizzicato, which is really handy for you know, just working within Cubase. So here are the different parts: the violins, the cellos, and the bass. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to press 8 on the keyboard, or I'm just going to select this one, and I'm going to add different MIDI events. They're just empty. As you can see, they do not contain any notes. So what I now can do is select the notes that the first violins have to play. Press Ctrl X and then go to the right here, and then paste them into the MIDI event of the violin 1. Now again, I can now cut the data of the second violins and then paste them into here. Then the cellos, they've got all pretty easy lines, but the chord progression is quite nice, I think. And then eventually the basses. Now obviously you should think about whether the notes are in the range of the instrument or not. I mean, can a cello play this low? Yes, it can. It certainly can. But obviously when you're using very high notes like this one, then a cello cannot play them because it only has a limited range. Now, same thing is going to apply for this one. So let's just do this very easy, very fast. I'm sorry. Right there. We just want to keep things organized, and that's why I'm doing this. Right there. Now, second violins. Then the cellos. Actually, the celli, I should say, but that doesn't matter for now. And the basses. Now we can just delete these MIDI events as they do not serve any purpose anymore. We can also delete this instrument. Now the pizzicato violas, we're gonna record them right now. So I'll just go to the beginning and play a line. Okay, very, very bad line. Quite a lot of latency, as you can see, which is also due to the fact that I am now recording the screen and recording the audio and things like that. Okay, just quantize it, and let's just play also a line for this one. Okay, really bad line. Anyway, this is just for showing you guys how this works. So, okay, drag them behind for the latency and quantize them. Okay, perfect. So what we have now is MIDI events for different instruments, and obviously we want to name these violas and place them at the proper position. So if we would merge these all together, except for the violas of course, we would just get the normal chord, except now they're actually being played by the different instruments. So what we can do now is go to File, Export, MIDI file. Now Audio Tuts Plus, String Composition, I've already done that, so let's just call it String Composition 2. Okay, then we can save it. Now the export options, you can also export the locator range. So these are this little thing here, you can drag it to here. Not really things to worry about, so just hit OK. Now it will export everything. Now we will close Cubase, save it as the project file so that it will be available to premium members who can download it. And then we can go to Sibelius. Now this is the quick start window, and it allows you to choose between different things, recent file, open another file, and in this case obviously we are going to choose to open a MIDI file. So I'm just going to hit the OK button. I'm just going to go to Desktop, Audio Tuts, Strings Composition 2, and open it. Now you can choose between different things here. You can use tab for guitars, you can show the metronome marks, you can do a document setup, paper size, pretty much the normal things which you can do when you create a new score within Sibelius. Now there is one important thing. As you select Adjust Rhythms, what it does is that it basically quantizes everything again within Sibelius, which is a very good thing to do. However, we can change the minimum duration from an eighth note to a quarter of a note. And what that will do is it will quantize everything to the beat, rather than quantizing everything to every second of the beat. So when you have a regular 4/4 beat and you select this one, then it will quantize it to every of these little 4 fragments. But when you do this, then it will quantize everything beat per beat. So when you have a really fast piece, you should choose this one, because obviously when you choose this one or even this one, the quantize will go completely wrong. But now we are just having quarter notes, so we can choose this. And this is really something that I would really suggest you to do, because it is just quite important to adjust the rhythms and get everything as accurate as possible. Now the also cool thing is that when a note is shorter than 35% of the average of all the notes, then Sibelius will notate that as a staccato note, which is quite useful. So back in Cubase, what we could have done if we wanted to have a staccato note is make a very short note, which is pretty cool. We don't need staccato right now, but we can just click OK. And now it is importing the score. It takes quite a long time, but there it appears. Now probably you still remember the change in time signature from 6/8 to 3/4, and that is just all being done within Sibelius. So a lot of this is just automation, and this is really cool and really handy, because your workflow is now just so flexible, because you can see that you don't have to change anything manually anymore. We've had a couple of bars rest, so that is normal. And also the pizzicato notes, they are staccato, so I thought they would not be staccato, but obviously they were shorter than 35% of the average notes. So what we can do is just delete the points which suggest the staccato. So now there's a couple of things that we have to do to clean everything up. Obviously we can add a text, subtitle, hello world. We can add a composer, me. We can do a lot of things. Now, first of all, there's a couple of things that you really want to do if you have imported the MIDI before you start cleaning everything up. First of all, you want to make sure that the basic things are alright, like the time signature here. Now that matches. However, the basses are usually notated in the bass clef, so what we want to do is change that. We can now simply go and hit the right mouse button, then choose clef, and then simply choose the bass clef. Then we can click right here on this clef, and instantly you can see that every measure changes to the bass clef, which will be way more readable for the bass player, and it's also usually. So also the cellos are quite low here, but the cellos can be notated in both the regular clef and the bass clef. So yeah, I think the regular clef would be good here. But what we can do anyway, let's just to show you guys this, we can choose this clef here for the cellos right there, so they will be quite high right now. But for the cellos, what we can now also do is select these measures, and then go to clef, and then select this clef, so that now the cello guys, you can, by the way, also switch between different parts of the score. These only be the violins 1, the violins 2, the violas, and the cellos. And now the thing is that right here we've changed the clef, and you can see that it just instantly changes within the measure, and that is just really cool, because you can also print the different parts, which is obviously essential for real orchestra, because they can't read this, and that way you're gonna have to clean up everything. So again, we're gonna delete these staccato points right here, and then everything is quite perfect now. So the thing that I really like about this is that you can just play something in Cubase. You have got a lot of creativity to play around with different riffles and in chord progressions, and then you can simply import it in Sibelius, and then it will automatically notate it for you. And that's also how a lot of modern composers work. A lot of modern film and television and game composers especially. Because producers simply do not have to notate something, as they usually mix or add voices and things like that. So this is pretty cool. Now, this is pretty much it. This is pretty much how you can add, how you can import your MIDI data from Cubase into Sibelius. So what we can now do is start adding things. Control E, which is the shortcut for expressions. We can, for example, add with a piano. Now, you do want to be careful to notate the piano on every part right there. Right there. Piano, it will automatically position the P right, so that it won't get so that it won't be in the way of these of this B note right there, also the P, and then right here B for the basses. Pretty cool. So what we can now do is go to line, add different crescendi, like here. Let's just shorten it a little bit, and then add another expression to forte, something like that. Now you do have to remember that you should do this at all the parts right there. And also cool thing is, when I now go to violin 1, you can actually see that everything gets updated. So this is just a really fluid workflow, really flexible, dynamic, everything that you really want. Okay, now there's only one thing which I really kind of want to show you, and that is obviously the violas. Because right now the violas think they'll just have to play this without any special technique, while we have actually loaded the pizzicato patch. So we want to do that right. So now we're going to add a technique, and right here, pizzicato, it says. And as we place it right here, maybe the P here, to get everything a little bit more clear to read. And now the violas know to play pizzicato. So you can do this with all the instruments. Obviously, you can also do, for example, con sordino for the text technique. Let's say right here, con sordino for the violins, which means that they play on the bow quite high. Anyway, that doesn't matter. And this is basically how you can do it. Obviously, I play this in C, but when you would play something in G, what you can just do is go to key signature and change things to G major or just G minor, whatever you want. So this is basically it. This is how to import your MIDI data from Cubase into Sibelius, and then cleaning it up into Sibelius for the final print, so that you can actually preview your composition within Cubase and show it to the director or the guy who's in charge of the music, so that he can hear a preview of the music and that he can accept it, and then it is getting performed by a live orchestra, or obviously a band, because we are now notating for orchestra. But obviously this also works for a band. If you would play in Cubase, if you would have a bass patch loaded, then you can just simply notate the bass or the guitar, the piano also. So this is just really dynamic and flexible. So this was pretty much it. Thank you for watching, and my name is Hugo Trump, and I really hope to see you at the next quick tip, which will be about layout and printing. So this is the Audio Test Plus session for notation in Sibelius. Again, my name is Hugo Trump, and thank you for watching.